Welcome, everyone. You're joining us for your targeted deep dive into the essential current affairs for UPSC preparation. This is for April 17th, 2025, Part 1.
And today we're digging into the key developments from April 16th, 2025.
Exactly. We know that as aspirants, you're dealing with just a huge amount of information. So our job here is to pull out the most crucial bits from, all those sources you're juggling.
Trying to save you some time and maybe make these complex topics a little clearer.
And as you listen, you might notice some topics seem familiar. That's actually good. Think of it as revision.
Right. We aim for comprehensive coverage of what's important now without just repeating word for word what we might have touched on before.
Precisely. Today, we've got quite a range: historical sites needing attention, new species discoveries, some cool tech breakthroughs, and socioeconomic schemes, too.
Quite a mix.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, some rather concerning news coming out of Karnataka.
Ah, yes, Hampi.
Right. A mantapa at the Virupaksha temple collapsed due to heavy rain. It immediately flags these big questions about heritage preservation, doesn't it?
It really does. Especially considering Hampi's immense history.
Yeah.
Established back in 1336 CE by Harihara Aya and Bukharaya Aya of the Sangama dynasty, it was the capital of the Vijayanagara Empire.
A powerhouse in its day.
Absolutely. Think about it. Foreign travelers like Domingo Pays describe Vijayanagara as being as large and beautiful as Rome. That gives you a real scale of its grandeur.
Wow. So this collapse really hits hard, considering that legacy. And it makes you think about, well, how we protect these sites now, with climate change maybe bringing more extreme weather.
Exactly. It pushes us to think beyond just, traditional conservation. We need better monitoring, proactive measures. And there's that balance, too, between tourism access and just keeping these ancient structures standing.
Yeah, a tough balance. And its location central Karnataka, Tungapadra riverbanks even, that has echoes. Traditionally a Pampakshetra of Kishkinda.
That's the one. Connects right back to the epics for many people.
But the empire itself had a dramatic end. 1565 CE Battle of Palakota.
A devastating defeat. Ramaraya's fall led to massive destruction. Sources say the city burned for 6 months.
6 months. It's hard to even imagine that level of destruction.
It really underscores how even mighty empires can be fragile. What's amazing is that after being largely forgotten, it was rediscovered. Colin Mackenzie, the British antiquarian, mapped it in 1799.
Giving us the first real records after it was lost to time.
Right, and later, others like Alexander Greenlaw took early photos, made some initial restoration attempts in the colonial era. So there was interest, even back then.
And then post-independence, the Hampi National Project in 1976 was the first big conservation push.
That was a major initiative, yes. And subsequent digs uncovered things like the Vathala Temple Bazaar, the Pushkarini that stepped tank, and the Pansupuri Bazaar.
Gives you a glimpse into the city planning.
For sure. Insights into the socioeconomic life, and of course the landmarks that still stand Virupaksha itself, the Lotus Mahal, Queen's Bath, Elephant Stables. They really capture the imagination.
They definitely do. And its global importance was cemented in 1986 UNESCO World Heritage Site.
It is huge. 250 square kilometers, over 1,600 monuments, one of India's largest archaeological zones, which, again, makes that Mantapa collapse feel quite significant.
Okay, let's pivot completely now. From ancient heritage to a brand new discovery in biodiversity.
Ah, the beetle.
Yes. Clinidium lalitae, found by Zoological Survey of India scientists up in the Northeast.
What's really interesting here is the location, the Tali Valley Wildlife Sanctuary in Arunachal Pradesh, that immediately tells you it's a significant place, biodiverse.
Right. And the name?
Clinidium lalitae. It's a tribute to the late Dr. Lalita Ray Chartery, who was a respected coleopterologist, a beetle expert at CSI, adds a nice human touch to the science.
That's a lovely way to honor her work. And this isn't just any beetle, right? It has an ecological role.
Yes, it's classified as a ground beetle. And these types of beetles are important for nutrient cycling, keeping the soil healthy. It reminds us how even small creatures play a big part.
So tell us more about this Tali Valley Wildlife Sanctuary. Sounds important.
Oh, it absolutely is. Lower Subansiri district of Arunachal ranges from about 1,200 to 3,000 meters elevation. Covers roughly 337 square kilometers.
And the biodiversity.
Get this, it's estimated to hold about 20% of all floral and faunal species in India. That's huge.
Oh, 20%.
Yeah, you've got rivers like the Panj, Sipu, Kering, and the Subansiri flowing through it. It's home to the Apatani tribe, known for their unique culture.
And the plant life must be incredible.
Stunning. Silver firs, ferns, loads of orchids, bamboo, rhododendrons. There's even a unique bamboo variety found only there, Pleoblastus simone. Plus, it's a key source of medicinal plants for local tribes.
And
A
animal.
rich mix. Elephants, barking deer, giant squirrels, porcupines, leopards, clouded leopards, wild boars, you name it. It paints a picture of a really thriving ecosystem. So finding a new beetle there just adds another layer to its importance.
Fascinating. Okay, staying with biology. Another new species discovery, this time a frog in Assam, Leptobrachium aryatium.
And this one has a bit of a story. It took a 21-year-long study.
21 years, that's dedication.
It really is. They first looked at it back in 2004, but initially misidentified it as a different species, Leptobrachium smithi.
Yeah.
It shows how careful you have to be with classification.
Where exactly was it found?
In the Garbanga Reserve Forest. That's on the southwestern edge of Guwahati, right near the border with Meghalaya.
And ecologically, that area is significant.
Very much so. It's adjacent to Deeper Beale, which is a Ramsar site, an internationally important wetland, and it's part of the Garbanda Deeper Beale Elephant Corridor.
So finding this frog there links into much broader conservation picture, doesn't it? Wildlife movement, habitat connectivity.
Precisely. Local discoveries often have these wider implications. And the naming is interesting, too. Aryatium, after Arya Vijayapith College in Guwahati.
Oh, why a college?
It's a nod to the college's positive impact. Apparently, the area used to be known for illicit liquor brewing, and the college helped transform it into an educational zone, so a nice social angle to the scientific discovery.
That's a great story. So what makes this frog biologically unique?
Well, it's in the Leptobrachium genus. These are usually stocky frogs, broad heads, short back legs, and they often have quite striking eyes.
And this one?
It's got these fiery orange and black eyes, really distinctive. Also, a reticulated sort of net-like pattern on its throat, and it has a specific rhythmic call it makes around dusk.
Sounds quite dramatic. How did they confirm it was new?
Through rigorous work, morphological checks, looking at its physical form, DNA analysis, and bioacoustic studies, which means analyzing its call patterns, that multi-pronged approach sealed it.
Right. And amphibians, generally, they're often seen as bioindicators.
Exactly. Their health, their presence or absence can tell us a lot about the health of the environment they live in. So finding a new one is significant for understanding the ecosystem state.
Okay, big shift now. Let's move into technology. A major breakthrough seems to have happened with miniature lasers grown directly on silicon chips.
Yes, this is potentially a huge deal in silicon photonics. Scientists in the US and Europe managed it, published in Nature.
Why is it such a big deal? What was the problem before?
Well, getting a light source, like a laser, integrated directly onto a silicon chip has been a major headache for a long time.
How do they do it usually?
The traditional way is you make the laser separately, often from different materials, and you basically stick it onto the silicon chip.
And the downsides?
It's slower, costs more, and you can get manufacturing mismatches. Things don't always line up perfectly. This new research grows the laser right there on the silicon wafer.
Using a process that works with standard manufacturing.
Yes, crucially, it's compatible with standard CMOS technology. That's the backbone of how we make semiconductors now. So it opens the door for scalability, potentially mass production.
Okay, so why use light, photons, instead of electrons on chips anyway?
Speed, mainly. Photons travel faster than electrons in this context. Plus, you get higher bandwidth, more data capacity, and less energy is lost as heat. It's key for next-gen computing, faster data transfer within the chip itself.
Like upgrading the wiring inside the computer. So what are the main parts of one of these photonic chips?
You basically need 4 key things. The light source, that's our miniature laser. Then waveguides, like tiny optical fibers, to guide the light. Modulators to encode data onto the light. And photodetectors to turn the light signal back into an electrical one the chip understands.
Got it. And the laser works by stimulated emission.
Right. In simple terms, one photon triggers an excited atom to release a second identical photon, and this cascades, creating a coherent light beam. The challenge is, silicon itself is bad at emitting light efficiently. It has an indirect band gap.
Unlike other materials.
Exactly. Materials like gallium arsenide GAs have a direct band gap, making them much better for lasers.
So how did they get around silicon's limitation?
Ingeniously, they grew a tiny microdisc of gallium arsenide on the silicon. They use a buffer layer, silicon dioxide, to help join these different materials smoothly.
Clever material science.
Very. Then they added a protective layer of indium gallium phosphide and the necessary electrical contacts to power it. A real feat of engineering.
Absolutely fascinating stuff. Okay, let's switch gears again and talk AI basics. We hear CPU, GPU, TPU all the time. Can you break down the differences for us?
Sure. Think of them as different kinds of brains in a computer, each good at different things: calculations, graphics, data handling. The CPU, the central processing unit, is the oldest, developed back in the 50s. It's the general manager.
The conductor of the orchestra.
That's a great analogy. It coordinates all the other parts.
Yeah.
CPUs have cores, individual processing units. Early ones had one. Now they have multiple, maybe 2 to 16 in typical computers.
And each core handles one task at a time.
Pretty much, yeah. More cores mean better multitasking. For most everyday users, 2 to 8 cores is usually enough power.
Okay, so CPU is the generalist manager. What about the GPU, graphics processing unit? Started with graphics, but now big in AI.
Exactly. GPUs are designed for parallel processing, doing many things at once. While a CPU works step by step, a GPU breaks a big problem into tons of smaller pieces and solves them all simultaneously.
Because they have way more cores.
Thousands of them in modern GPUs. This makes them perfect for the massive calculations needed in machine learning and AI, which involve processing huge amounts of data in parallel.
So they evolved from graphics cards into these AI workhorses.
Essentially, yes. They became general-purpose parallel processors, but they haven't replaced CPUs entirely because some tasks are still better done sequentially, which is the CPU's strength.
Right, different tools for different jobs. Now, the TPU tensor processing unit sounds even more specialized.
It is. A TPU is an ASIC application-specific integrated circuit. Google introduced them in 2015. They're custom-built hardware specifically for AI tasks.
Optimized for tensors. What are those?
Tensors are basically the multi-dimensional arrays of data used extensively in AI algorithms. TPUs are specifically designed to crunch these tensor calculations extremely efficiently.
More efficient than GPUs even.
For the specific matrix math common in neural networks, yes. They can train complex AI models much faster, sometimes in hours, what might take a GPU wings. It's about specialization.
That's a massive speed up. Where are they used?
Google uses them heavily in search, YouTube recommendations, and for training their big AI models, like those developed by DeepMind. They're crucial for large-scale AI.
Okay, that clarifies the roles nicely. The generalist CPU, the parallel processing GPU, and the hyper-specialized TPU for AI. Very helpful. Let's shift now to a health topic, and it's quite a serious one. Reports from the U.S. of 2 likely deaths from Creutzfeldt-Jakob Disease, CJD.
Yes, CJD is a very rare but devastating brain disorder. It leads to dementia and is ultimately fatal. It's classified as a prion disorder.
Prion disorder. Can you explain that?
Prions are basically proteins that are folded incorrectly. What's insidious is that these abnormal prions can cause normal prion proteins nearby to also misfold. They then clump together in the brain, causing damage. It's also called a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, or TSE, because the brain tissue can develop sponge-like holes.
That sounds incredibly scary. Are the early symptoms easy to mistake for something else?
Sometimes, yes. Early on, it might look a bit like Alzheimer's. But the key difference is CJD progresses much, much faster. And sadly, it's almost always fatal.
How rare is it?
Very rare. About 1 to 2 cases per million people globally each year. It tends to affect older adults more often.
And the main symptoms, besides the rapid dementia?
Involuntary muscle jerks called myoclonus are common, along with problems with coordination and balance.
And the prognosis is grim.
Extremely. Life expectancy after symptoms start is usually less than a year. Often, the immediate cause of death is an infection, like pneumonia, because the person becomes so immobile.
Is there any treatment?
Unfortunately, no cure exists currently. Treatment is really just about managing symptoms, providing comfort care.
A sobering reminder of diseases we still don't fully understand. Okay, let's move geographically again to Manipur. Reports of tensions near the Thangjing Hills.
Yes, near the buffer zone, separating Kuki and Maite areas in Churachandpur district.
What's the significance of Thangjing Hill?
It's a mountain peak in Churachandpur district, west of Moirang. The whole north-south range there is called the Thangjing Range, and it forms part of the western border of the Imphal Valley.
And culturally?
It's hugely important for the Maite community. They believe it's the abode of Thangjing, the ancestral deity of Moirang. It's a sacred pilgrimage site, especially during the month of Sajibu, around April.
A deeply revered place.
Absolutely. In Maite cosmology, Manipur is sometimes imagined as a body, and Thangjing Hill is considered its right leg. It shows how deeply embedded it is in their cultural identity.
Understanding that context is crucial when looking at tensions in the area. Now, let's move to Sudan, specifically Tuti Island in Khartoum, facing a terrible crisis since the civil war started in April 2023.
It's a devastating situation. Tuti Island sits right where the Blue and White Nile rivers meet. It's one of Khartoum's oldest settlements, known for its greenness, its farming. They call it Khartoum's garden.
Sounds idyllic traditionally. How big is it?
About 8 square kilometers. Farming and fishing have been the mainstays. And it has deep cultural roots for the Mahas community, who settled there way back in the 15th century. It's a symbol of indigenous identity and sustainability for them.
But the war has shattered that.
Completely. UN figures are shocking. 13 million displaced across Sudan, tens of thousands killed. In Khartoum alone, maybe 100,000 facing famine. Tuti Island is right in the middle of this.
And climate change is also a factor.
Yes, compounding the crisis. The Nile's flooding patterns are disrupted, more extreme floods, but also droughts, desertification. It makes their traditional farming incredibly difficult.
Is anything being done to help preserve their way of life?
There's something called the Heart Project Heritage Empowered Action for Risk in Tuti. It's trying to preserve the traditional Taya farming system and document community knowledge to build resilience against both conflict and climate change.
That sounds vital. How is it connected to the city?
Via the Tuti Bridge, which was actually the first suspension bridge built in Sudan, underscores its strategic spot.
A community caught between conflict and climate change. A truly difficult situation. Okay, let's discuss a government scheme now, PM-Vidyalaxmi, for higher education loans. There have been some concerns from banks about its uptake.
That's right. It's a central sector scheme designed to help meritorious students finance higher education.
Who's eligible?
Students admitted to India's top 860 quality higher education institutions, or QHEIs. These are ranked by NIRF, includes both private and government institutions.
Are there reasons someone might not be eligible?
Yes. If they're already getting other government scholarships, interest help, or fee reimbursements, also if they drop out or get dismissed from their course.
Makes sense. How do students apply?
Through the PM-Vidyalaxmi portal. It's meant to be a one-stop shop.
Is there a cap on the loan amount?
No upper limit specified in the scheme itself. It depends on the actual costs, tuition, living expenses, even things like a laptop.
And the financial benefits. There's interest subvention.
Yes, a 3% interest subvention for loans up to 10 lakhs, but only for students whose family income is up to 8 lakhs per year.
That could make a big difference. What about loan security?
There's a credit guarantee for loans up to 7.5 lakhs, irrespective of income. The government covers 75% of the outstanding default amount. It's meant to encourage lending without needing much collateral.
So a potentially helpful scheme, but maybe facing some implementation hurdles according to the banks. Finally, let's look at a major infrastructure project, the Etalin Hydroelectric Project in Arunachal Pradesh.
Yes, the state government just allocated nearly 270 crore rupees for its construction in Dibang Valley.
And it's a big one.
Huge. 3,097 megawatts planned capacity, one of the largest hydro projects proposed in India by size.
How will it work?
It's planned as 2 run-of-the-river schemes combined. It involves building 2 large concrete gravity dams on the Dry and Tangan rivers, which feed into the Dibang River. One dam over 100 meters high, the other 80 meters.
Now, Arunachal, we talked about its biodiversity earlier. Any concerns here?
Definitely. The project area is described as being in the richest biogeographical province of the Himalayan zone and a mega biodiversity hotspot. So, major ecological sensitivity.
And the local population.
The area is dominated by indigenous Idu-Mishmi tribes, whose lives are deeply connected to that environment. So there are significant social considerations too.
Who's actually building it?
A joint venture company called Etalin Hydroelectric Power Company Limited. It's 74% owned by Jindal Power Limited, a private company, and 26% by the state-owned Hydropower Development Corporation of Arunachal Pradesh.
So a massive project in a very sensitive area. Its progress will be watched closely.
Absolutely. It really encapsulates that classic challenge, balancing development needs with environmental protection and indigenous rights.
Well, that wraps up our detailed look at the key developments for today's deep dive.
Yes, we've covered quite a bit of ground there.
And just to recap, this was your UPSC Focus Analysis for April 17th, 2025, Part 1, looking back at the news from April 16th. We went from Hampi's heritage concerns to new species, silicon lasers, AI processors, CJD risks, cultural sites like Thangjing Hills, the crisis on Tuti Island, the PM-Vidyalaxmi Scheme, and the Etalin Project.
Hopefully pulling these threads together gives you a richer understanding for your prep.
Think about those connections like the Etalin Project raising questions about development versus environment, similar in a way to the long-term preservation challenges faced at Hampi. How do we balance progress with protecting our heritage, both natural and cultural?
Food for thought indeed.
Exactly. If you found this deep dive useful for your UPSC preparation, please do hit like and subscribe. That way you won't miss our future analyses of current affairs. Thanks for tuning in.